Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. I'm with the great Tina Torres. I've been looking forward to speaking to Tina because we had Shaver on the podcast last week. And if you kind of haven't put the two together, they did a track together called We Got Beef. It's absolutely banging. It's been blowing up as well. Sounds absolutely amazing. And the reason I wanted to get you on the show is because as an artist, you are doing it all. You've got, the ability to sing, you've got the ability to rap, and I always love having great artists on the show. So appreciate you coming through. And the other thing that I noticed while doing research was you were also in the 50 Cent Twisted music video, which came out in like 2014. So it's a real kind of like, whoa, to me, as like, I always forget how long people are in the industry for before, like, they kind of pop up on people's radar.
Yeah.
But it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, talk to me about how long you've been in the industry, because as I said, you've kind of been around the circles for quite a while, but does it feel like it's gone quite quickly, or does it feel like, just happened, like it's been a long process?
Oh my God, this feels like the longest journey ever. I'll tell you now, I always say like, I kind of started coming around the industry in circles when I was like 19, but I was like a pastor's daughter. So my dad and family was like, no, you are not going there. You know what I mean? So I always tell people, it was like, I got to the starting line with like bloody knees and elbows and like, just completely haggard. So even just getting there, being able to, like, I had to endure a lot of persecution from my own father, So, so yeah, since I was 19, when I was 19, I was like, I moved out to LA and I started working with a duo called the Juggernauts. They went on to produce, Jay-Z, Kanye, everyone, I believe it was, I forgot which album, but Rihanna, everyone. So I was doing like reference vocals for them. And there was a situation that was supposed to happen, like Baby Bash heard, I guess the execs at Capitol Records heard me on a record, and I was supposed to go back and finish it, but I had already moved back home and kind of like been in like this Christianity programming again, where I was like, I can't go back out there, and that didn't end up happening. But a new song came out of that whole situation, and then long story short, I moved to New York, and there, I just started making my moves.
How was it with your father? Was it a religious thing, or was it a perception of what hip hop was? Like, what was it that kind of stopped him from being supportive?
It was definitely the religious aspect. I mean, my parents were ministers, and my dad was like this big, like, pretty much famous like preacher in that whole Christian evangelical world. So that, and I wasn't even allowed to listen to Christian hip hop.
Really?
Yeah. Like my dad traveled the world preaching a message called The Sound of Music, and kind of like breaking down, how music, when it's out of order, and like, and what it does to the human psyche and one's soul, really. And there's truth in music. I even talk about the frequency in music now, but the true vibration of hip hop. I always say that hip hop, it definitely is a derivative of Latin music, and Latin music is just African rhythm that was taken, preserved in the Caribbean, evolved in New York City. So what happened in the late 60s is, all the kids from all over the tri-state area, from your Blacks, your Puerto Ricans, different Latinos, Italians, and even Jews all got together. And in the streets were, just fusing the sounds that they were accustomed to. And then it was like, the initial vibration was unification. It was unity between people, and like rising out of the ashes because of all the bad things that were happening in New York City during that time. So, and I love what KRS One says, the true vibration of hip hop was all about peace, love, unity, and having fun, simply put. So, so I talk about that. And, I think my dad was a little bit ignorant as far as that goes, because he, of course, didn't really delve into hip hop. But my journey through Latin music, and even my love of hip hop at 17. I mean, my first two albums that I went to buy at 17, I had to sneak away, go to Tower Records. I bought Fabulous Street Dreams and Get Rich or Die Trying. So, that was like my introduction to it all. And then from there, I kind of went backward because I wasn't allowed to listen to all this stuff growing up. So at like 19, I discovered Lauryn Hill, and I knew Lauryn Hill from the Sister Act movie. I loved her voice and all that. But when I sat down and like sat with the Miseducation album, I could not let it leave my ears for like 2 months straight. And I just like, and it like, to me, I was like, this is what hip hop is. I felt it in my spirit and I felt it in my soul. And ever since then, you know, it's like, I've just been making my way and just kind of, you know, putting puzzle pieces together so that we can go back to that true vibration. Because I do want to talk about how hip hop was commandeered in the 80s and 90s for the detriment of generations as well.
It's so much to touch on, but those are classic albums. Like, Get Rich or Die Trying was the first hip hop album I ever listened to as well. So that was the one that got me into it. But yeah, I agree with Lauryn Hill. Like, we reviewed Lauryn Hill on this podcast ages ago. And it is one of the best albums in terms of like what it does for hip hop and also like sonically and what she is as an artist in terms of the way she can put songs together, the way she sings, the way she raps. I think, yeah, undeniable in terms of her impact on hip hop. But I'm interested to know, because how did you find hip hop? Like,
I think hip hop found me. And I mean, I would say, you know, the culture was very potent. So when I was like 17, you know what I mean? Everybody was listening to these new breaking songs, and like even just the, you know, the style of dress, you know, rock-aware, baby fat. It was all very much that style. So, but I feel like my journey, even though it started off in like very shallow, superficial, you know, clothes and this whole image and pop culture, my journey led me again to the true vibration of hip hop, and that is peace, love, unity among humanity.
It's interesting because it's like, in a way, when people say you shouldn't listen to something, you just want to listen to it more. And then you kind of, especially when we're young, it's almost like, it's like there's something you're trying to hide from me. And it's like, I'm trying to find, it makes you more obsessed with it in a weird way.
Yeah. That whole taboo effect. Yeah. It works.
My parents were always like, this is just a phase. You're going to grow out of it. Like, how can you listen to this forever? And like, cause my parents didn't listen to hip hop. They still don't listen to hip hop. They don't really get it. And so like, but this phase has turned into a lifetime. But I think part of it is like, I'm going to show you it's not a phase. And I'm going to show you that like, and then you get invested in it. The more research you do and the more artists you find, you're like, and now there's nothing better, literally.
Exactly. It's like what hip hop does is it like transcends all genres. So you can fuse it with anything, you know, and that rhythm just, you know, it awakens the spirit, it hits the soul. And that's what I want to see more of, more of that positive upliftment through hip hop in this next era.
Do you feel like that's coming?
I'm here. Absolutely.
Well, I think so too, because it's like, it's been a weird kind of journey. Like, I look back from like 2000s, 2010s, now we're 2020s. And it's like, you can definitely see that we're coming back to message hip hop. Like, it feels like COVID in a weird way was a circuit breaker for hip hop. And like, it made a lot of people go, oh, I need to reflect on my own life, the society we live in, etc. Whereas I don't think we had that for a period of time. There was just like this movement away from messaging.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, now I'll touch on how hip hop was commandeered. So, I mean, even like Bone Thugs and Harmony, Crazy Bone came out like speaking about this article. Like, I read this article years ago. And then when I saw him talking about it on a podcast, I was like, wow, that actually, I mean, it validates it. This is Crazy Bone talking about it. And he's speaking about it with conviction. And also too, because of his experience and what he knows in the industry. So there was a meeting that happened in the Hollywood Hills in the early 90s. And all of these executive, or all the people from the label, they were told you have to sign an NDA before coming into this meeting. They signed the NDA. As soon as they heard what it was about, they said, we have this new groundbreaking genre called gangster rap, and we're going to be using it to fund the private prisons that we're investing in now. So if you see the content, you go from people like, you know, KRS One, Public Enemy, all like what they were talking about to now. And even like, I'm from the West Coast. So, you know, all the gangster rap, Ice Cube, all that to now, it's not necessarily a story of rising out of the ashes. It's more like, this is what we're in. This is the vibration we're in. We're going to stay here. And that's even what's happening now with, I'm going to just say it, with Young Thug, and I'm speaking to a few people right now in New York, and, that are in hip hop, to talk about what's going on, because this music, what they consider art, is not actually art. It's predictive programming. This is not hip hop. This is not the true vibration of hip hop. This is not what hip hop was created for. Instead, it was commandeered so that all the words, the lyrics, the sounds, the whole vibration of it all will subconsciously program generations. And we've seen incarceration go up. And you know what I mean? It's like, and we see violence and crime and all that kind of stuff is up right now. And I do believe music plays a big role in contributing to all of that.
So do you think that's a now issue, like 2010s, or do you think that in the 90s it was the same issue? Because the 90s of hip hop is considered the golden era of hip hop. Now,
keep in mind, the effect of the cause hadn't fully transpired yet. So it's like, we're in it and everyone's having a good time. And then what happens, like, as time passes, you see the effect of what is going on. And now we see that, and we complain about people being killed in the streets, but we're not complaining about the music that's talking about people being killed in the streets. And it's not like they're telling a story. Young Thug is literally saying, I'm gonna murder you. I'm gonna like speaking to someone, saying, I'm going to bust a cap. I'm gonna take you out, all that kind of stuff. And it's that will not happen on my watch. And I know I'm a little controversial, but I'll even say it. Mr. Kevin Liles is advocating in court for these people. And this is a man that's making money off of the detriment of generations. So I would like to call a roundtable, and I'm trying to do that right now with people that have influence and have names, and especially women in hip hop as well, that have been overlooked. Like, I'm not talking about female rappers. I'm talking about women that have been around that support hip hop. Like, I just met this lady. Her name is Tandy. I forgot her last name. She gives lectures, and she uses hip hop, the true vibration of hip hop, to help uplift youth and talk about what's going on and all of that. And she knows Kevin. So I'm trying to get all these people together, because it's like, things are getting progressively worse, and we need to talk about it.
So let me ask, how do you feel about groups like NWA? Because obviously their music came from a situation where it was an expression of what they saw every day on the streets. Like, some would say it's revolutionary in terms of what it did for hip hop, in terms of what it did for people, in terms of the things that they were able to express. But when you look back, do you have a differing opinion at all?
No, that was more like expressing what was going on. And that was in like that time, that transitional period, where it went from like, and it seemed like it was the same thing, going from talking about what's going on, and then all of a sudden just staying in that vibration. There's no coming out of it. It's just, this is our culture. This is what we are.
Do you think though that like music is entertainment though, and that in a way it's just like a movie? Like, we see violent movies all the time. There's an argument, people have a lot of critiques about hip hop and what they rap about. They don't have the same critiques about violent movies. I mean, John Wick is in his 4th iteration of the John Wick series, and they're just bloodfests, but people celebrate it. And then it seems there's a different rule set for hip hop. Do you not think that it's not a hip hop problem, it's a society problem, that this is way deeper than just like the music, and the music is just maybe a small element in the bigger picture?
Yes, music. I would say music is a not just a small. It's a very important element. It's just as important as the programming from the visuals that we get. So yeah, it is a societal thing, but like there's so many demographics out here, so they have to use different genres of music, different pockets of life. We're going to program people through movies. We're going to program this demographic through this kind of music, through all this. So I talk about that too, predictive programming in movies. And for me, I have a hard time like now, as when I had my spiritual awakening in like 2012, ever since then, it's really been hard for me to actually sit down and watch a film because I can see what's happening. I can see the subliminal messages in there and see the programming that's taking place. Now, it's like it's that's like there's so much going on that we need to talk about this just like we're doing now. So it's not black and white, like, oh, movies are bad, oh, music is bad. Like, we need to discuss what's going on here. So there's a difference. I tell there's a difference between art and predictive programming. We need to know the difference. And the more we're in tune, the more knowledge we have, then we can detect that. People today, they can't, especially children.
Well, I think in a weird way, freedom of expression and freedom of art is a big difference. Like I mean, I have a big problem with the way movies are made in general. Right now, they're just like cookie cutter. They're just like big action blockbusters that there's no real kind of like substance to them. They all kind of look the same and they're all just money budget films. But I think like the true kind of thought, and I look back in history and every kind of historic regime that, you know, manages people limits art first. And art limitation is one of those ways to keep the people under their thumb. So like, I always think that free art and free expression is one of the key pillars in any free society rather than, you know, limited within a certain scope.
Yes, and I agree with you. So I've been kind of changing my stance a little bit lately because I'm like, yeah, you know, when I had a discussion with someone and like, you can't take away something. Again, you're going to create the taboo effect and they're going to go after it even more. You know, we had prohibition in this country and what did people do? They still got drunk, behind closed doors. So what it is, and I've been saying this for some years now, I'm like, people are going to be choosing their music the same way they choose their food in the future. We have knowledge of food and what's good for our bodies, and we have a choice every day as to what we're going to eat, what we're not going to eat. So as soon as we have more knowledge about music and frequency and what it does to our subconscious mind, what it does to our actual nervous system as well in the physical, then we can make better decisions. So, while Young Thug is out here expressing, how he wants to murder people, I'm out here expressing how, I don't want to see that. And I want to see, a different vibration going on.
Yeah, it's interesting because like there's one thing, because when we talk about music, it's like, it's not only what people say, but it's sonically what you listen to. So like, I personally, I like Young Thug. I think sonically what he was doing was really interesting and kind of set the tone for a lot of people. I don't necessarily go to him these days as much, but like, it's like for me, the first thing that got me into hip hop was sound. So it's like the sound is now the first thing that I listen for before I listen to messaging. Because half the time, and one's going to take me like 3 or 4 listens anyway to pick up half the shit they're talking about. But I think sonically, sound is the real test for us in terms of music and what we actually listen to.
Yes. I'll tell you this too about sound, which is kind of sometimes why we're drawn to it. It's like sugar, when a kid has sugar, of course, oh my God, like the sensation is amazing. So with certain sounds, I believe Kanye even spoke about this at some point too, is like that certain sounds hit your lower chakra, your sex chakra. And what that could possibly do is end up blocking your Kundalini energy so that it doesn't rise and that you don't continue manifesting as a powerful being on this planet. So it keeps it like keeps the energy down. And sometimes, yes, there is music that sound like I would love, like I could go back, like the whole 50 Cent album, Ludacris, but looking back and I'm like, oh my God, what, like I was at 17 years old, I was in the club, like to the windows, to the walls, to the sweat drops down my balls, all these bitches crawls. I'm like, oh my God, no wonder I experienced a lot of detriment and even being raped in the industry, because that was the vibration that I was intaking while having fun. But then my life played out and it transpired. And there are many, many factors that went into, that happening in my life. But I'm like, it was good to me. But back, and even then, if you turn on some Ludacris, I will jam out. But I'm like, I know that it's not necessarily good for my spirit. And that's not what I want to feed my soul.
So you mentioned that you were raped in the industry. I do want to touch on that. Do you mean literally or metaphorically?
Yes,
Yeah.
literally, by a platinum selling producer who introduced me to Diddy. And I mean, I had Diddy calling me, texting me, "Welcome to the family." And because I kicked and bucked and I was not okay with that happening to me, they realized, oh, she's not down. She can't handle what we do. And that's what happens on the inside. You know what I mean? And which is why I'm speaking out against the industry right now. I have no desire to make it in the music industry, to sign a record deal. I don't have that desire anymore. I've been around and I've infiltrated and I've gotten to see what goes on the inside to a certain degree, but enough to know that that's not where I want to head into.
Well, let me first to say I'm sorry, because it's crazy. You kind of, and it's weird because I'm on the outside looking in. Like I always say, I'm not an artist. I don't make my music. I just love the genre. And it's always crazy to me and upsetting to me when these things come out that, like, you know, people who are just trying to do their thing and contribute experience really horrific things. And, you know, credit to you because you're still making music and you're still making your own way. But I know that it would stop 99% of people from pursuing their dreams.
Absolutely. I mean, I know of another story of another girl, and if you know my conversation is a little too steep for this podcast, just let me know. But a girl from New York who got picked up by Bruno Mars was out in the studio with a producer and a writer friend of mine. He flew them all out there, and she signed a 3-album deal with Atlantic Records. Suffice to say, she went a little haywire and experienced some things she didn't want to experience, and is no longer doesn't want anything to do with the industry, is not even on social media anymore. So yeah, it's a lot out here. And right now the record labels are being investigated by the FBI, because, you know, it's just too much, and it's convoluting. It's destroying the music. It's destroying true art, because a lot of the mainstream artists out right now, again, I'm telling you, it sounds like it's not art. It is predictive programming that is completely fabricated by an entire team, a creative production team, like people that have, like, I mean, I don't want to get too weird on here, but there's so many, like, they're very cunning in what they're doing out here, you know? And even people like Doja Cat coming out, who's saying after she, like, is now this big famous artist, she's like, I haven't really made the music I want to make, you know? And she's a dope artist. She is a vocalist. She is a writer. Her flow is crazy. But for her to say something like that, and then, you know, of course they have to keep their mouth shut eventually, because they sign on the dotted line, and, you know, they want to eat and they don't want to get taken out and all that. But it's just, you know, the music industry is destroying music, and we need to go back to that place of just authenticity in the music, and just enjoying, like, just this upliftment and positivity. You know, I'm tired of seeing all this negative stuff in the music. You know, us women, we don't want to listen to WAP. That's not empowering for women, and it was not written by women either. It was written by two men who are, I believe, are here in Orlando. So, and as a woman who was raped in the industry, that's offensive to me, you know? And then a year later, now we're gonna have Cardi B do an episode of Baby Shark for infant children. What's going on out here, you know? So, yeah, I think the spirit of the Most High, the spirit of God, the spirit of the ultimate spirit of love and positivity is going to envelop the earth very soon, because too much is going on, and everyone out here is all positive vibes only. It's not positive vibes only. There's a lot of negativity going on. And until we can get to that true place of positivity, we have to clear out the mess. And that's what's going on. And I'm tired of seeing non-artists like Cardi B, these female rappers who get their bodies done, don't even write. They cannot pen. They can't pen. And they're put on and winning Grammys. Shame on the Recording Academy. Shame on them.
to be fair, the Recording Academy has never been great. Let's
No.
be honest. It's never been a recognized thing where if you win a Grammy, you've earned it. I mean, the hip hop and the Grammys have always been separate. They've never really aligned. And so they've had criticism for years and years and years in terms of who their award, best rap album or best recording artist, whoever they record. So I think 100% right on that. But I'm interested in the WAP because I remember when WAP came out, that's not my type of hip hop anyway. I've never been a huge fan of sex rap and talking about sex rap. Like, I get if people are, but I remember speaking to some women and they're like, it's female empowerment. And so it's interesting when you say to me, because I think the claim was, and they may have to correct me if I'm wrong, but the claim was it allows women to be what men were, which is extremely sex positive. That was what they said. And I'm like, each their own, whatever you want to claim from this. I'm just not a huge fan of it. And I know it was huge, but it is obviously extremely interesting to me to hear you say that. What was your take? I mean, I know your take was not in the positive, but what was your take when people say things like that it is sex positive or that it is pro female empowerment?
I feel like those are people that have not yet expressed or been able to express that side. And it is important to, now that I'm seeing and even kind of seeing how my journey played out, it is important for them to go through that to realize that it's not empowerment. Because at one point I was putting out more provocative photos on Instagram, and I had like a manager and everything. And the attention I was getting, like the energy that was coming my way felt disgusting. It was draining me. And I'm like, this isn't me. I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. So I stopped. And, all for what, to try to get followers on social media and all that. And I'm like, no, this is, and a lot of people in the industry coerced me into that too. An Atlantic exec was like, you need to sell sex. You need to do this. You need to do that. And I'm done with that. You know what I mean? It's so I as a woman who has kind of been through that. And I even worked at Sin City for a month as a bottle girl, like way back in 2015. And so it's not like I haven't been around those vibrations. I did Cardi B's makeup back in 2013 on a video shoot. And when I was doing her makeup, she was complaining to me that men didn't respect her because of what she did, right? Ironically enough, you're empowering, right? You're supposed to be empowerment. And as when I was doing her, when she was complaining, we were talking and everything, Smack White, who's a battle rap curator, he walks in the room and he looks at me and he's like, I want to shoot you. And I was like, no, I'm not here for that. I was like, I'm just a makeup artist. I was like, but I'm an artist. And in front of her, I started talking to him about how I'm an artist and talking my shit. And at the time I was working with a rapper named Ali Vegas. So all of a sudden dudes come around, they like giving me props and paying me respect. She picked up on how to gain respect. She wasn't an artist. She saw me and she saw how they paid me respect. So she went and started trying to gain respect in whatever way she could. You know what I mean? So I lost my train of thought though. What was my point?
We're talking about female empowerment through the song WAP.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I just see it as, they haven't experienced that yet. And when you experience that enough, either you're just what I call an NPC in the Matrix, and you're just here to perpetrate the vibration, or you're one of spirit and of soul, and you just need to experience.
Yeah, I say I think it's so interesting, and especially women in hip hop is a completely different, discussion piece, because it is not a good history of women in hip hop. I mean, even the way women are discussed in hip hop has never been positive. And so now it feels like, I will say, we are having female artists start to come out that are not being forced to show their bodies. They're like, we're starting to have a few more, like Shane Noir is one of them. Rhapsody is another one that are artists. They don't need to sell sex to be successful. And I think that to me is more a female empowerment, to be like, hey, I am here purely because of my art, rather than just because I look good in a music video or that I look good in a photo shoot.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that is like when you can, how do I word it? Like when you can fully resonate on the character and the essence of your being and project that over physicality, because this is simply a vessel that we live in. This is not everything. You know, we live forever, but this vessel just carries us through this small time and space and this experience. So uh what I want to, and I say this all the time, and I say this to young kids, and when I speak out there, like, you know, relish in your character, in the essence of your being and what you can do, you know, because this is just going to fade away.
Do you wonder what the impact will be on hip hop long term? Music like this, like, what's your theory on
I
the?
mean, well, we're like music, like what?
Yeah,
We're already seeing it. I'm going to tell you why, because I was just at the NOLA airport a few days ago, and I left my mom at baggage claim. I went to the bathroom and I come out, and this haggard guy comes in up to me, and he's like, "Hey, do you want some money?" And I was like, "No, I'm okay, thank you." And he starts pulling out cash, and he's like, "I have money for you." And I was like, "No, I don't need it. I'm okay, thank you." And he was like, "I need sex." And the perception out here, because of songs like WAP and all that, is that women will do anything for money. And that situation, I felt like it was a sex trafficking situation. Had I said yes, like maybe some other women would have for money, I would have been taken in a vehicle and been kidnapped. You know, so it's like it creates danger, and we're seeing more of that.
yeah, it's like a weird kind of space in time where, like, you know, even me, like, growing up, like, I didn't see music to the extent that it's in right now. Like, I would have never imagined that WAP would be, you know, playing everywhere. Like, it was enormous. Like, it was in clubs, it was virtual. I don't know, in Australia it wasn't on the radio, but was it on the radio in the US?
Oh, it was everywhere, everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that a song that literally says wet ass pussy would be on the radio all the time.
It's what it's become. This is America. The land of the greed, home of the mentally enslaved. That's what I say, and we got beef. And that whole record is talking about, you know, I'm dissing on the surgery female rapper that isn't a true artist. You know, I'm saying, why are these chicks got to have a fake ass running on that synthetic gas? Why every Indian trying to be a chief? And that's paying homage to Lauryn Hill. You know, when you step up in my game now, we got beef. These lamos, hey hoes, moldable like Play-Doh, got no spine to say no, don't even know the way though. Now it's your time to pay, so step up out my way, yo.
Have you, what's the reaction been from people? Because obviously you're not the quietest person, you're quite outspoken, which is a good thing. I always think personality is a good thing. But have you had reaction? What have you heard from not only fans but other people, like, from all the things that you talk about?
Um, I mean, I always get positive feedback, especially from people that I know, you know what I mean? Like even when like Shy like sent it to people that he knew and all that, they were like, "Oh my God, this is a hit. This is great." And then you know, you get your trolls on social media, especially now on TikTok. I just kind of went viral. So I'm even speaking out against Drake, because like a lot of us know that Drake was an industry plant. He was an actor kid, a Canadian actor kid from a show called Degrassi. And then he comes out on a Sprite commercial saying, "First name greatest, last name ever." Like, sir, where did you come from? From the cold, hard streets of Toronto, or, you know, of Degrassi? You know, like, he paid no dues in hip hop. Where did he come from? You know what I mean? But the thing about it is that you have your true hip hop heads. And I'm like, yo, no one is coming out like really defending this shit. And everyone wants to, because nobody wants to mess up their bag in their pocket. They don't want to ruffle feathers. So then we get all this stuff comes flooding in because of money and record labels and, you know, the capitalists that want to just take over. And then hip hop gets commandeered. And, you know, so anyway, back to what I was saying. Damn, I lost my train of thought again.
Don't worry, it literally happens to me all the time. Literally all the time.
All the time.
Do you, so this is probably a question you might get asked before, but like you obviously take shots at big artists who have a lot of respect, a lot of, props, a lot of fans. Is there not do people ever ask you like, are you only taking shots because you're not as big as them?
Oh yeah. Oh, well, not anyone person. Yeah. I think people have asked me that too. And at this point, okay, so there has, like, I have to be honest, like there has been resentment, bitterness, anger. I can't say that those things don't exist. And if any human claims that they have never experienced those emotions, then they're lying. So this whole thing, oh, you're just, of course I'm bitter. I was raped multiple times. I've sat in producer studios and sat down to write, and they're like, they didn't understand my lyrics. I've had men say, oh, well, let me senior edit your lyrics. I've had people like shit on me, all this people do not know my journey. So yeah, there's a little bit of bitterness in there, I have to admit. But at this point, I've experienced what I've experienced. I've seen what I've seen. And I know I do not want to head in the direction of the music industry. So this is what I'm doing. I'm here to uplift humanity, and I'm here to destroy what is a detriment to humanity.
I wonder if those people that are really successful have gone through a similar thing. They just keep pushing forward though.
I mean, I don't know of anyone that is really, really famous that hasn't sold their soul. You can kind of tell in the symbolism, like I'm a very spiritual person. I grew up in a spiritual household. My grandmother has a heavy spiritual background, not outside of Christianity. So I'm very knowledgeable in those areas, and you can just see, you know what I mean? So it's not that it's really that they just gave up and gave in. And a lot of them really don't have as much money as we think that they do. And it's really a big illusion. It's a big illusion.
But I think fame is the ultimate driver. It's the attention, it's the ego. Like I think, in a certain way, part of us wants to be famous. In a weird way, I don't start the podcast if I don't want to be famous. We don't start being musicians, promoting.
We want recognition. I'll tell you this though, growing up, been singing since I was 5, right? I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music. I wasn't allowed to really watch television. So I didn't have this image of a pop star that I was like, oh my God, I want to be that. And I want to be there. I grew up singing in church. Like that's what I did. My mom put me in tap, jazz, and ballet when I was 5. I did my first play at 5. So I just did what I did. And then by the time I was like 12 years old, people were like asking for my autograph all the time and calling me Hollywood. And people ended up projecting that onto me, where I was the happiest kid just doing what I did. And then eventually, when I got older, I'm like, yeah, I want to make a career out of this. And then all of those ideas of fame start to hit. And then, with all the projections of people on you and all that. And even now, like fame is a very scary thing. And it's not that I don't really desire this fame anymore. I would love recognition for what I do. But that fame game is very, I don't desire to be worshiped. I don't think that's a healthy thing for humans to do to another human being, but I would like to be admired and respected.
Yeah, it's weird. Like,
yeah,
it's when I look back and I look at where society is, it's like an interesting place. And I don't know, especially in the US, like, again, like growing up in Australia, we're almost like a small version of the US. We kind of like adopt the things that is happening over there, but like it's not as prevalent. We got a population of like 25 million people here. So it's not as extreme. But then sometimes we look out there and we're like, damn, it just feels like it's a bit of a circus.
Oh, like here in America?
Yeah.
It is a circus. It really is.
Does it, like, I don't know, is it weird when you see like just people playing like it's a weird game at the moment. Like it feels like it's all a game and it's just about who plays the game the best.
Yeah. Yeah. And that game is not a nice one. You know what I mean? It's like you don't get to live the life you want to live. Let's just say that.
Do you think this is why artists are starting to make their own labels? Like the wave of independent labels are starting to come. Like that's what I've started to see is more people are going, you know what, I'm going to make my own label with my own artists and I'm going to be able to control the own style of music rather than go really corporate.
Yes. There are artists, I believe like Sean Kingston was one of those too. I don't know why he just came to mind, but I think he just didn't want to deal with the industry and what goes on. So he just kind of like separated. Yeah. And even now, like, I mean, so much information is coming out. And even now, like, I mean, Spotify and iTunes, all that's like a scam for artists. You know what I mean? Like the fact that we have to go through these, you know, these third parties and these platforms that are really amassing all the money and just kind of taking away our energy and creativity. Like we need to come up with some more creative ways to get our music out there. And the fact that they're making like DJ software that can only play songs from Spotify, they're pretty much, you know what I mean? They're stopping the flow.
Well, I would say 90% of the people on the planet, well, not the planet, maybe in the Western world, get their music from Spotify or
that's
Apple
the thing
Music.
it's totally centralized. So again, that's kind of like the record labels, you know, they're the gatekeepers and all of that. And so we're just finding other ways and trying to figure it out. I do believe that Facebook, that Meta is coming up with some kind of alternative to Spotify, I believe. So even now, like I have records that I've just held that I'm not putting out because I'm just trying to strategize and wait for more information so that I can have the best possible push.
Do you not think that Meta is just another version of it? Like I look at Meta and I'm like, it's a fake world, literally. That's what it is. It's a metaverse. It's like a world within a world. And to me, it almost feels like another way to distract you from real life. That you can go into this weird kind of different world. You put some goggles on, the real world doesn't exist, and you have a different economy. I'm rich here, I'm famous here, but then you take the goggles off, and with your, as you said, your vessel, it's not there. So I don't know. To me, it's strange. Like I look at these things and I look at them as distractions. I had this conversation with my brother. It always worries me when it's like a new world. Because it's like while the real world is happening or while this world is happening, you're in this fake world. And it just gives power to more the people who are actually running the show in the real world.
Absolutely. Like the movie Surrogates. Have you ever seen it with Bruce Willis?
Yeah.
Predictive programming. You know what I mean? Once you start seeing that, you can kind of see what they're like, what they're going to be doing and what they're up to. You know what I mean? And I say they, you know, wherever we call them the powers that be in government, you know what I mean? So, and even the word government means to govern, meant to control the mind. So, which is what people in early hip hop were also talking about. You know what I mean? You have people like Prodigy who started coming out, speaking out against things. And, you know, I got the chance to meet him years ago and then they took him out. I mean, you don't, they claim that he died from choking on an egg in the hospital.
I thought maybe I'm wrong, but I thought he died from sickle cell.
No, he did have sickle cell. He was in the hospital for his sickle cell, but they claimed that the cause of death was him choking on an egg.
Yeah, I mean, I always think, you know, Prodigy is one of the greatest rappers. Like, but he also was gangster rap, and he obviously spoke about what he saw though. And
he started turning it around though. If you notice, that's why Illuminati got my mind, soul, and my body. You listen to that first verse, you hear what he was saying. Like He was like, I don't know all the lyrics verbatim, but he was like, I was caught up in this, you know? And then even Ali Vegas was signed to Trackmasters. He was on Trackmasters with 50, and he was under Tommy Mottola. Like Tommy Mottola had him under his wing. And he was the first person that told me, he's like, yeah, the stylist is the first one that comes and gets you to do, gets you to go against your moral compass. So he decided not to go in because he didn't want to do it. And that's someone who I had a personal relationship with, you know?
Yeah. It's like, it's so weird. And so, because I love listening to stories like this, not love because they're not good stories, but I always find it the most, like, music is one thing, but I find the industry behind the music the most interesting, because we don't really get to see a lot of insight into it. And, you know, I've spoken to artists and they, you know, they say, oh, I can't mention like certain people's names because obviously they have NDAs, and obviously they also have, you know, careers they want to continue having, whether it's songwriters, whether it's ghostwriters, whoever you are. So it's always interesting when I hear what happens behind the scenes, because I think that we do need to talk about it, because young and upcoming artists, they need to know what they're getting into. And like, there's just not that much education of like what happens within a label and how a label runs, as opposed to here's what it looks like, here's the fame, here's the money, here's everything that you want, the unlimited sex that you can potentially have, but they don't show you the other side of like, okay, what does it actually cost?
Yeah. And even now, like it's coming out that, you know, labels are taking out, you know, insurance on rappers, life insurance, just in case they die, you know? So it's like, and there are death clauses in contracts. If you hit a certain volume, certain numbers, then it's like, which is why they set up celebrities like even now Britney Spears, I think Kanye is being commandeered by the Kardashians. That's a whole confusing thing. But I kind of started seeing, I'm like, oh, these Hollywood elitist families, they take a big talented celebrity, that celebrity amasses a bunch of money, then they MK Ultra them, they send them to Cedars-Sinai and they rehab, right? And then they put them under conservatorship, and through legal ways and all that kind of stuff, where they know they can take someone's money. And word in Hollywood right now, allegedly, is that the Kardashians stole $600 million from Britney Spears. So like they're, you know, you go YouTube it, people are talking about it, and they have like receipts, and, you know, money is being funneled through different accounts and all that. And all of a sudden Kylie Jenner pops up as a billionaire. You know what I mean? So I'm telling you, the illusion is Hollywood. The music industry is Hollywood. And Hollywood was created by the CIA. So again, you know what I mean? But there are people like myself, people like Shy VA, people, you know, a lot of us artists who I call us artists of the light. And we're here to share our art and what happens when you shed light in a dark place? You're not really going to see some pretty things. You know what I mean? So being a light worker doesn't mean that it's all, you know, bunnies and roses. Being a light worker means that you're going to have to get your hands dirty. And we're here to do that. And even if you listen to Shy's lyrics and music, he's talking about some stuff. He weaves it in a way where, you know what I mean? And he's doing that whole trap sound and all that, but he's reversing the spell that is being cast on people.
So let me ask you what your next kind of part of your career looks like, because obviously we've spoken about quite a lot so far, but I'm interested to know, like, okay, we're here in this moment within hip hop. We've got, you know, a lot to say clean up and a lot to shed light on. But what do you see as your contribution moving forward? And does that look like the rest of your career, or do you see it for a time period? Like, what does that look like?
I mean, hip hop, I will always resonate with the vibration of hip hop and the lifestyle. It's like, it's in me for the rest of my life. I'm probably always going to make music until, that one day, until I stop, or what, until my voice goes out, you know what I mean? And like, I'm just going to keep doing me. There is nothing that a mainstream signed artist does that I cannot do. I shoot videos, I make music, I perform, I do all that. Now, I might not be on a Grammy stage, and I might not be on the big stages, soon enough. I do believe that will happen. And we're going to see a bit of a transition where us artists of light are going to be placed on those platforms. So yeah, I think there's a shift happening right now. So we're going to see, it's going to be like a flip of entirely a new set of artists. And what I call it is just we're being attuned to a different frequency. So as the planet raises in vibration and frequency, then people will all of a sudden start to pay attention to this, and they'll tune out of that, and then they'll tune into this. You see people now, they're tuning out of mainstream media. You know what I mean? Nobody really listens to mainstream media much anymore. It looks foolish. So it's going to look like that.
Well, yeah, I don't watch the news because like, I know that it's perpetrating a side, that it's opinionated, that there's no such thing as unbiased media these days.
Yeah.
Like, it probably never was unbiased, but it felt less biased. These days, it is so obvious which side it perpetrates. Like, it's like, I agree with this side, or I agree with that side. And every opinion I have is going to be one-sided. It's not going to actually objectively try and uncover the truth. And I think you're 100% right. Like, people don't watch the news as much as they want. People don't read the news as much. It's like gossip now. Now it's like, headlines, and then you read it and it has nothing to do with the headline. And it's like, okay, so I know what this was. This was just an attempt to get me to read something. And then people read headlines and they're like, that's fact. And then they use the headline as the moniker for the news. And it's like, no, you didn't even read the piece of work that they did. It's not sourced. It's just opinionated. And it's so strange but yeah, a lot of people are catching on to it. And like, part of the reason I stopped watching the news, especially during COVID, is like, it was depressing. Like, every day it's just like, this is bad. This is bad. The world sucks. Here's a fluff piece about, a puppy. And that was it. That's what the news is. And so just tuned out.
And I'll tell you, COVID showed us, I don't know how many people got it, but how all of these celebrities and artists, mainstream artists, are mainstream media. They were the ones like yelling at us, telling us to mask up and to stay home and to like, what, you're the same as me. You know what I mean? Well, what makes you an authority in telling me to mask up? And then telling us to vote for a specific party, all of them. So come on, you know what I mean? And then the ones that are saying to vote for the opposite, they're being bashed in the media. What does that tell you? And look at our country now. We're in shambles, So.
There's a really powerful quote. I forget who it was by, but the quote says, in any society, look at who you're not allowed to criticize, and I'll tell you who's in power.
Yes.
And so that saying to me epitomizes everything. And so whenever anyone is like, you can't say this, or you can't criticize that, you can't criticize them, it's like, well, why?
Exactly. And I mean, even Malcolm X said it back in the day. What did he say? He was like, I can't say it verbatim, but basically like, whoever the media is bashing is probably the good guy. I'm not saying anything, you know what I mean? I have my ideas of what's going on. I do believe in two birds of a feather. Like, I don't believe in government at all. I don't believe any of them are, I just don't. Like I said, government means to control the mind. And I do foresee in maybe the next 50 to 100 years, government being abolished, and humanity governing oneself, all of us governing oneself, because the whole value system is going to start to come down to, because that was built on Common Core mathematics. So, in early hip hop too, they talk about certain mathematics and all that as well. So I started studying vortex-based mathematics, which lets us know that there's no larger number in the universe than 9. So in actuality, you can't stack numbers. So our whole money and value system was created on a completely false illusion to make us think that others have more than we do and vice versa. So, and it also teaches us the Fibonacci sequence 369 and
can
how
you go back to that there's no number higher than 9. I'm not great. Well, I'm okay with maths. I did okay at school, and then they started adding what was it? Letters to maths, and I was like, okay, you kind of lost me on this part. But so when you say there's no greater number than 9, like what do they mean by that?
Okay, so after 9, you have 10, which is just a 1 and a 0.
Right. Okay.
So in vortex-based mathematics, 1 + 1 = 3, as opposed to Common Core, where 1 + 1 = 2. And to simplify that, you take two humans procreate, and you produce a third. So that is the true mathematics of the universe, which is also when we use numbers to formulate the positive frequencies, which is in music. You can break it down, which are good for your spirit, your soul, and there are negative ones that cause disharmony.
Would you not say that 1 + 1 = 2 before it equals 3?
Would you say that that happens before 1 + 1 = 3?
Yeah.
No, because like I said, the action, like you get two humans, 1 and 1 produces a third. Now the stacking, we know Common Core, so it makes sense in our mind because that's what we were programmed to stack numbers. But in actuality, you can't stack numbers. Everything, energy flows through everything. Life is a circle. It's not linear. Time is relative. So when we understand how everything flows in and out of each other, and how spirit is just like, then we tap into an abundant mindset. So then even now when they want to control our thinking, and we're in a recession, and people, they want to tell us we're going to be making less money, and that all this and that, where we can actually mentally rise above the government, and tap into our abundance vibrationally, and every day have everything we need and want, and continue to create and manifest. And
so I was just going to say, I think there is a difference between what you're talking about, numbers in the universe and numbers in science, because obviously numbers in science and to build things, there is a difference to just like, 2 people making a third. Like, I think there is a difference between the two.
Well, I mean, in science, okay, so like our most substantial form of science we have in our world today is quantum physics. Everything else is theories based on comprised matter in this matrix simulation. Now, it's made up. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to word this properly right now, but if we really you can reason and you can make things up and find with it, like whatever you want in this simulation, but there is an actuality, which is the epicenter of all creation. And that is the vortex-based mathematics. That is Fibonacci sequence 369. You go down to 9 boils back down to that 1, and even the Bible, it says, if John 1 says, in the beginning was the word was God, the word was with God, and the word became flesh. One word, one sound, one frequency ends up, it's creation, manifestation in the universe today.
This conversation makes me think, like, how do we ever know that we're not being programmed?
We're always being programmed because we have a subconscious mind. There is a program. In order to operate, we have to have a certain programming. It's just, what is your programming? Now, one person you can reprogram yourself. We just have to have the knowledge.
And it's weird because when it comes to society, and you were talking about government, I don't see a change in government unless there's a civil war. Like, historically, that has been the only way for there to be any meaningful change within any country, for a change in government. And, we see it through history that there needs to be a point where the people within a place or within a country decide they've had enough and they want to uproot it all. And, you know, it's weird because it felt like there was a huge boiling up in the US 2 years ago with George Floyd. And again, looking from the outside in, it felt like they were on the brink of civil war. Like it was really scary to see that, you know, what was known, especially in the Western world, as the most powerful, the looming light for all other countries was on that brink. But, you know, I definitely think there is a misconception in terms of government, and government has a lot of power.
Mm-hmm. Wait, say that again. Do you think?
So I think the only real way for a change in huge governmental structure is through civil war.
It's civil war. Yeah, I mean, I believe we're still at civil war right now. It just doesn't look like what it did in the past, where we're all out here with guns and everything. You know what I mean? But we are at civil war. So it's a war of the minds. It's a war of beliefs, and you know, a lot of us are fighting right now.
Do you think that it will, like, do you think it'll be 50 or 100 years? Like, what gives you those numbers as opposed to longer term?
To me, that just seems kind of reasonable with what I like with today's temperature, you know? And I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of what I projected. It was just a number I threw out and what I felt in the moment. But I do know that I was sent here to Earth to help. So as long as I live, you know, I'm going to fulfill my purpose and my mission.
It is interesting, though. There are definitely people who are pro-government, and I always find that interesting. You know, my family is Russian, so, you know, growing up they were never a communist country. They were always trying to be communist. They were socialist, but they lived in a country that was total government control. You didn't have freedom. You know, my babushka, my grandmother, she always said, you know, when she was there, that like it was like a black market. You had to trade people. So her father was a dentist, and you couldn't buy like meat or bread that had none at supermarkets. So what you had to do, you had to make a deal with the baker or with the butcher. And so you'd be like, I'll give you dental care, come to my house, I'll look after you, and they'll give you food. And so it was this black market of like, you know, the government will claim you will have enough, but no one had enough. And so they created their own economy of like, you have to share, you have to make deals with people. So the butcher would like keep a special cut of meat for you at the back before they run out. And so they would do a lot of that. So when people like pro increased government control, I'm like, but we've seen what that looks like, and that does not look good.
Yeah. I mean, that a lot of people are speculating that's what's happening here. You know, we're headed toward that, you know, that socialist communist kind of, you know, I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out.
I think the idea is better than the reality. Like, I don't think those things can work on a big scale. I think in small communities where it's like, you know, I think they say, you know, that a great community is like 100 people is like the right size for something like that to work, where it's like you all work for the collective, you know, you all work together. But in a population of 360 million, it's never going to happen. And they're always run by dictatorships.
Yes. And it will not happen under the understanding of Common Core mathematics, because it's, you know what I mean? It continues to enslave people, and keep people under that illusion. Now, vortex-based mathematics, if everyone starts stepping into that understanding and that vibration, then we can create a utopian society where there is just free renewable energy for everyone, and enough circulating energy. But under Common Core, it's impossible.
Is that because of competition? Is that the core meaning of like me versus you?
Probably separation, competition, you know, yeah. And that's the opposite of unity, you know, and that's where we're trying to go is, you know, to unite humanity. At least that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, I think only good can come from trying to bring people closer together and trying to bring, mutual understanding. And as you said at the beginning of the podcast, the more conversations we have, whether you agree or not, is not the point. It's about talking about it and listening rather than just shutting it down. And I think this goes back to why a lot of people don't watch the news, is because they don't listen. It's just shouting.
Yes.
And, I'm sure there are parts of my opinions and there are parts of your opinions that people will agree or disagree, but that's the whole point. And whether it's a thought, whether it's something you've never thought about, I think that's the whole point of just getting you to start thinking about stuff. I know there are things that I'll take away from this conversation and start thinking about, and who knows what I'll come up with. I always think that, like, you got to be open to hearing the other side, so that at the end of the day, if they convince you that the other thing is better or makes more sense, then that's probably the right thing.
Yeah. And for me, like, I would like people to know I'm apt to teach. I'm not cemented in everything changes, and I learn new things every day. So like you said, like, let's talk about it. I would love to hear the other sides, and like, I do have strong opinions, and people, they see that and it can ruffle their feathers, but I'm also open to learn something new as well.
Well, I think that part of what makes you strong and opinionated is that you've gone through a significant journey, and it's always good to see that. The worst thing in the world is to be, from what you've gone through, to be a shell of yourself. So I think it's props to you for not only, making music, but also willing and ready to fight for what you believe in. And I think that's an important trait. And I think that should be admired, regardless of whether you agree or not. I think that's the whole point, is like, you should be willing to stand for what you feel and your values, and not just hide in the corner. I think a lot of people are scared of showing their true self. So that is definitely something that people can take away from you. So I give you props for that, for sure.
Thank you.
Well, I only have one more question. I know we've kind of gone down a rabbit hole I never expected. That's why I love doing this podcast, because I don't plan the questions, and we just find things to talk about, which is awesome. But this question I do plan. So I lie when I said I don't plan any. I do plan one. It's probably not going to be the hardest question I've asked you today, but if you could recommend one album that everybody should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, cannot be your own music, can be any genre of music, what would it be?
Whew. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, The Miseducation really is my favorite album out there. And I don't idolize anybody, but Lauryn Hill is the one person I come maybe close to idolizing. So that's the album.
There you go. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I absolutely love it as well. And as we said at the beginning of the podcast, it is iconic, number one, iconic in hip hop, and it changed the trajectory for a lot of artists, especially a lot of female artists who took a lot away from what she did in that album. And especially because not only was she female, but she was a mother, and she represented, and I've said this before, she represented what it was to be female, a mother, and a woman within hip hop really well. She kind of nailed all of that part. She didn't pretend to be something she wasn't. And the expression on there was true, and you could just feel the emotion on it. I think that's probably one thing that we miss from current music is emotion. Like, there are songs that you can really listen to, and I'm like, okay, I can hear how you feel on this song, as opposed to, oh, this is a product that you made.
Yeah, exactly. And that's true art. So I will be I'm coming out with a diss record, Cardi B diss, called The Real Trap Selena. So we need to get back to that. We don't have diss records anymore. You know what I mean? Hey, I know I am better than Cardi B. Okay. I just got to say that I'm a way better rapper. I actually write, I sing. The whole record is written by me. I don't have 7 writers on it. You know what I mean? So I'm coming with it.
When's the drop going to be?
I'm looking right now. Let's see, October, I think, maybe. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Tina Torres. Obviously, I'm excited to see. I always love diss tracks anyway, because I think they're a core part of hip hop. But But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to plug? Obviously, you can find her on Instagram as well. Obviously, Spotify as well, YouTube as well. But is there anything else you wanted to shout out? Anything else you wanted to plug for your fans?
Definitely TikTok. I'm talking my shit on TikTok right now. So
well, make sure you check out her TikTok. Always keen to hear if you agree, whether you disagree. I don't really care either way. Let us know. Shout out. But yeah, I think I'll be surprised by how many people also agree with you. And they just don't say it in their everyday real life. But it was absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and we'll definitely have to do it again. And hopefully, we'll have to see what happens with the Cardi B diss. I mean, anyone says there's a disc coming out, and I'm always excited because I'm like, yes, here we go. I want to see some battle rapping. I want to see. What drives me crazy is when rappers talk on Instagram Live, and I'm like, what are you guys talking for? Make a song.
You know what? Okay, I like that. You're right. All right.
Awesome. I'm gonna